In the world of education, there's been I'll call it a silent revolution that's been going on. It's not something huge or obvious that we hear about the Arab Spring or revolutions happening around the world, but it's been happening quietly over many, many years. And in a nutshell, I think it would be qualified as drawing out or bringing out the hidden potential in every person. I don't even want to say necessarily every child, but every person. It's going from the secular world. There's a famous British educator named Sir Ken Robinson, and he speaks about the educational system for the last 100 years, which was like the Industrial Revolution, where you have a manufacturing plant, and products go in one end, it goes through a process, and it comes out a product on the other end. And he describes that as the educational system that we've had for the last 100 years. Of just children go in, you give them a lot of information, and they come out different. He says in the last dozen years or so, decade, that there's been a more organic type of process, where it's not just information out, but it's enabling the individuals to develop and grow themselves. A lot closer to home, we have that now within the chinuch, taking an entire look at the entire bagriyot system and drastically changing it in the coming years, slashing it, getting it to the point where we're able to really build and develop the future of the nation and not just information in and information out. And perhaps closest to home, there was a recent lecture by Zachariah Wallerstein from Ornava at the Aguda Convention in New York, which understatement would be it made waves in the religious world. If you look it up, it's all over the Jewish press, not the Jewish press, but the Jewish press, that Rav Wallerstein basically was given the exact same complaint against the educational system, that on the one hand we have tremendous Torah institutions, but on the other hand we have a manufacturing plant where we're manufacturing Talmidei Chachamim. We're putting them in, teaching them Torah, and we're sending them out. And he gave a beautiful mashal when he said that the battle between Yaakov and the Sar Shel Esav, the Torah uses the very strange lashon of Vayivak. He says, Vayivak is dust, what's that relevant to a battle of the forces of good and evil? So he says, Esav knew there was no way he would ever destroy Torah in the world. Torah was always going to continue. Baruch Hashem, we have incredible Torah institutions. But what does dust do? Dust dulls. Dust on gold, dust on silver. It gets dull, it gets dim, it gets dingy. So the beauty is gone. So Esav said, I'm not going to destroy Torah, I'm just going to dim it. I'm going to dull it. And Rav Wallerstein said, I'm not going to say that I said it, Rav Wallerstein said that that's what the Torah institutions have done now to Torah. We're just making it a subject, we're testing it, we're giving them a curriculum, and where's the sparkle, where's the shine, where's the geschmack, where's the excitement that we're able to draw out from what the Torah and what Yiddishkeit should really all be about. So even though it's a new revolution perhaps in education, there's been somebody who beat the curve by 14 years. And Zev Freundlich opened the yeshiva in Monsey, New York 14 years ago called Sharei HaRobim. And taking all of these principles to its core, developed a school that's been incredibly successful. In fact, he's already opened up branches in Lakewood and Baltimore. And as I quote, Rav Freundlich said that Sharei HaRobim is not a school, but it's a concept. And I once heard an incredible quote. I want you to guess who said it. It says that everybody is a genius. But if you judge a fish by how well it climbs a tree, he'll grow up his whole life thinking he's an idiot. So who said that? Albert Einstein. So for the past 14 years, Rav Freundlich has taught fish how to swim and monkeys to climb trees, I don't know. But we're very honored to have Rav Freundlich here tonight, and he's graciously offered to take open questions and answers at the end. General questions of chinuch, and he's also made himself available if there's specific questions of chinuch as well, either tonight or if it gets too late, then perhaps tomorrow he'll be staying in Ramat Beit Shemesh. So, Rav Freundlich.
Harry and Rosa are sitting at their traditional breakfast table, eating their traditional breakfast, and they notice that the new neighbors move in next door, a young couple, and Rosa remarks and says, wow, that young wife, she doesn't know how to do the laundry, the clothing is really dirty. And the next day, Harry and Rosa sit down again for breakfast, and Rosa looks out the window again and says, I don't understand how they stay married. I mean, the clothing are filthy. And the next day again, Harry and Rosa have their traditional breakfast, and Rosa looks out the window again. She says, someone's got to teach her how to do the laundry. And this goes on for a couple of weeks. And then finally, one morning, Rosa looks out the window and says, finally! She got her act straight. She knows how to do laundry. I wonder what happened. And Harry says, I washed the window. When we talk about chinuch lenar al pi darko, educate a child according to his way, a clouded lens distorts reality. And we must be brutally honest when we talk about chinuch lenar al pi darko, that it shouldn't become chinuch lenar al pi darki. And this is something that not easy, and it's certainly something that we all grapple with as parents, feeling what's best for our child through our lenses, even though our lenses may be a little bit cloudy. I'm going to quote something because I would never dare say this myself from Rav Freundlich Hirsch. This is something which was mind-boggling. And again, only Rav Freundlich could say this, and we have to understand what he means. But Vayigdalu Hanaorim, Esav and Yaakov were brought up, and Rav Freundlich brings out the concept that they were brought up together. I quote Rav Freundlich from his original German translated to English. As long as they, Yaakov and Esav, were little, no attention was paid to the slumbering differences in their natures. Both had exactly the same teaching and educational treatment. And the great law of education, chinuch lenar al pi darko, was forgotten. Whereas when Father Yaakov visualized the tribes of our nation in the sons standing around his deathbed, he saw not only future priests and teachers, he saw around in the tribe of Levites, the tribes of royalty, of merchants, of farmers, of soldiers. Before his mental eye, he saw the nation in all its most manifold characteristics and diverse paths of life. And he blessed all of them, each according to his specialty, in his different path in life did he bless them. Had Isaac and Rebekah studied Esav's nature and character early enough, and asked themselves, how can even an Esav, how can all the strength and energy, agility and courage that lies slumbering in this child be won over to be used in the service of God, and the future Gibor be trained to become not a Gibor Tzayid, but in truth a Gibor Lefnei Hashem, then Yaakov and Esav, with their totally different natures, could still have remained twin brothers in spirit and life. Quite early in life, Esav's sword and Yaakov's spirit could have worked hand in hand. And who can say what a different aspect the whole history of the ages might have presented? This is a very, very heavy statement that we're not accustomed to. And of course, we have to understand Yitzchak and Rivka, but certainly must open our eyes to think for a moment. If the Avos, according to Freundlich Hirsch, were not, at least on their level, of course, on the exact target of Esav and his nature, how much more so do we struggle with this in regards to our own children? When we see our own children and we ask ourselves, where, how, what venue should we mechanech our children in, we have to stop and ask ourselves the question, are we doing chinuch lenar pi darko or al pi darki, or maybe al derech of my neighbor, or my friend in shul, or popular culture in our communities? And it's incumbent upon all of us to ask ourselves the question, are we doing what's best for our child's personal growth? One of the things that my yeshiva, Shari Razum, has done, and the other yeshivas that have followed in our educational derech, is work on something called multiple intelligence. Multiple intelligence was created by Howard Gardner 40 years ago. And multiple intelligence says as follows, that every single human being has a specific learning language. And I call it learning language because this is the language that we communicate with ourselves and with others. For instance, just to make on a little light side here from this Rav Hirsch, all of you out there know how to remember a phone number, right? You have to remember a phone number. In this room, there will be at least 7 different ways to remember the phone number. Some of you will remember a phone number. Think to yourself, how do I remember a phone number? So you say, well, I just say the number over again, 547-3838. Right? There are some people who say, no, I remember where it is on the dial pad, 547-3838 on the top 3. Some of you will make a mathematical calculation. You say, well, 547-3838. There are some people that I've asked and said, oh, I remember the tone, the music tone. And this is the way, if you have a question amongst yourselves, this is the way you may show your differences. It's not for naught that some of you will remember it by saying it over and over again. Some of you will remember a mathematical calculation. Some of you remember where it is on the dial pad. Some of you remember the music. That's saying that your learning language is something specific, different than someone else's. You know, we talk about languages. So I learned in Mexico many years ago, Mexico City, and it was always funny because I always thought I knew Spanish until because I talked to the cleaning lady, and I went to Mexico. I realized that I didn't really know Spanish at all. And I'd ask someone, excuse me, sir, can you tell me, I would say my English first to try to be New English. Can you tell me to get to the bank? So he'd say, sorry, I don't speak Spanish. Pacara, tukuro, pikira, para. Just because he said that language slower doesn't mean I understand the language. If you would have went, pacara, pakara, pakara, para, then what he's done is he's changed the language. And now all of a sudden, that slower language which did nothing for me, just changing the language all of a sudden makes me understand. I took this course in Target years ago. They had a Howard Gardner had one of his Talmidim, Tom Armstrong, came down in the Target convention and gave us this course for 2 days. And he asked us to please put on a piece of paper, get a piece of paper, it was in a box, and said, please put in this box how you would get from your directions from your home to your school. So everybody had about 3 minutes to put down directions, how to get from the home to the school. So basically, in the room there were about 75 Manalim there. Out of the 75 Manalim, about 25 Manalim actually wrote down, go to the corner, make a right, then make a left. And the other 50 made a map. And he said, this is not for naught. Your language of whether you write something down, which means you have some kind of linguistic language, that's the way you communicate with yourself and others. And for those who write down maps, we call that spatial. You may know it as audio-visual, but that's much more superficial than the details of, there's actually 7. There's linguistic, mathematical, logical. This is the way your phone numbers are taught. If you repeat it back, you have a linguistic type of language. If you're making calculations, you're mathematical, logical. If you're talking about pictures, then you're spatial. If you're talking hands-on, you're it's called kinesthetic. If you're talking about musical, well, that's called musical. And then there's 2 others, interpersonal and intrapersonal. But this is something which opened the eyes of me years ago when I understood that there are really differences in learning languages. And each one of these learning languages that we talk about is the key to identifying your child's alpidarko. Now that doesn't mean that a Rebbe, who says the Gemara, Zokt the Gemara, and then your child says, Rebbe, I don't understand. Zokt the Gemara. He still won't understand. When he uses the board, you've now added a new language, so he has linguistic plus, well, if it's on the board, then that's called spatial. If he gets more complicated, between the Rebbe and my yeshiva are actually trained in all 7 languages, and he'll start off with linguistic, Zokt the Gemara, and then the second language won't be Zokt the Gemara, but it changes to Zokt the Gemara plus a board. Dr. Gemara comes to the front of the desk and let me show you what it means. A stark ksuva, let me show you about mitzvah. Let's talk about buying and selling. Let's talk about finding a lost object, and that's called kinesthetic, a hands-on. Sometimes the bacher doesn't get it, so the Rebbe does a beat and starts with whatever the Gemara is talking about, and says Eila Mitzvah Shalai, Eila Mitzvah Shalai, and some type of beat. That's a musical, and all of a sudden, whatever language a child is needing for his own personal language, all of a sudden becomes real when he understands that the Rebbe is talking his language. Saying the language slower doesn't help you understand it better because it's not your language. And this is what happens when children will go to a yeshiva or anything, even communication with their own child at home. If you don't understand the child's language, they're not going to understand what you want from them. Again, it doesn't mean every time you tell the kids to clean your room, you put a song to it. Go clean your room now, otherwise you're not going to get supper. You don't have to do that, but there's a concept of understanding. My child thinks this way. Now, of course, there are variables, and no one's 100% something, and people sometimes are intermingling, languages, and you're 50% this and 75% this. But there are generalities that you'll know. I once had a plumber come to my house. A black fellow comes to the house, and I bring him downstairs to the basement where all the pipes are, and I say, I got a problem, and he's going. Okay, I got the problem. He's a musical language learner. That means he understands things through music, and that's the way he views his parnasa. He's a plumber, but he's doing it through a language of music. And everything that you do in your life, you'll see, the way you communicate with people and yourselves, comes out through these languages. This is the first way to identify the Alpi Darko. And there, when we talk about this, it's something that's new to us. It's difficult because when we have our own, I don't want to say agendas, but our own personalities, that sort of gets in the way of changing for our children. And that's the difficult part because we are specific learners, and my child has a different language, and I have a hard time relating to that. Just want to say on the flip side, I looked inside, I didn't see it, and I tried to find it, maybe it's somewhere else. Just a different way of understanding Yitzchak Avinu, and it really helps us at the same time. And this is sort of the next thing we're going to talk about is the pasuk says that Yitzchak loved Esav ki tzayid b'fiv. So pasuk Rashi ki tzayid b'fiv. Right? Because he tricked him. He asked him what kind of question. I think Meiser from straw, right? So he tricked him, Kitzai B'Fiv. So the Ramban says, I found it, but he says, he says, Kitzai B'Fiv. You know why Yitzchak loved? Esav? Kitzai B'Fiv, because Esav put tzayid in his mouth. He gave him a geshmak steak. And he loved the son, because he gave a good shtik fleish, a good piece of meat. Hear that? That's even worse than the verb. What is that talking? What do you mean? Yitzchak Avinu, Gevura, control, discipline. That was the way he brought it, manifest HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this world. That's what chesed like his father, peace and love. It was Gevura, discipline. He should love a geshmak, a hot dog. Right? So the Mefarshim explained. Inside he said, because Yitzchak understood what his son's teva was, which is the exact opposite of Shachar Hirsch. He understood what his son's teva was, and understood that his kid was a hunter. And the way he would relate to his child, who's a hunter, is, could you bring me some of that delicious deer steak? Could you bring me like a schmack steak? Yeah, the T-bone. Give me the T-bone. And Yitzchak understood his child, and therefore, B'dafka, he asked him things to do to bring them connecting together and to understand that they have that relationship. The exact opposite of Shavuot, according to the Ramban. Both are true and both are needed for both of our understanding of Mechanech, our child. When we talk about having a connection with your child, there's nothing more that you don't want to do, and this has been by all mechanchim, unless you're very special, is learn with your child. My Rosh Hashiva, Rav Freundlich from Beit Shemesh Elyon, he told me there are three things that I got to tell you that are the most important things in this world. Rav Freundlich was the son-in-law of Rabbi Ben Grozovsky, son-in-law of Rabbi Ber, Shir Beit Shemesh Elyon, and he told me there are three things. I want to tell you. The first thing is chazara. Chazara is the most important thing, and I know it's the most important thing because the Yetzer Hara never wants you to chazar. The second thing is musar. Musar is the most important thing, and I never want to do it. And the third thing is learning with my son. It's the most important thing, and I never want to do it. So it's the most important thing, although you shouldn't do it unless it's very special. Learning with a child, unless it's a very special relationship, is very difficult. Very difficult, very stressful. Your son feels the stress and feels he doesn't let you down, and therefore learning with your son is not a great venue. What is a great venue, and we're going to talk about now, is spending time with the things that your son wants to do, his hobbies, his language. And if you identify the chinuch l'abidaka, it's the same thing what his hobbies are. If he loves hiking, then go hiking with him. If he loves biking, then go biking with him. If he likes sports, then play sports with him. If he likes music, then let him sit down and show you how to play some music. Whatever he has a specific niche for, and what he appreciates, that's where you need to spend time with your son. That's kitzayid b'fiv, as the Ramban says. Make sure your connection with your child is something that he's good at. Learning necessarily doesn't come easy. I guess unless it's that special relationship, learning with your son doesn't necessarily make the relationship stronger. It sometimes does the opposite. In the yeshiva, in order to understand a person's uniqueness and appreciation of a person's uniqueness, which is really the key. When Rabbi Malinowitz and some of the other Chanchim who asked me to come and speak, so they made this very nice brochure. And I was very happy because they told me what I should be speaking about: motivation, self-esteem, confidence, creativity, the desire to grow. Number one is identifying chinuch l'nar apidarko. Understand his way. Not darki, not my way, but his way. Understanding to his learning styles, whatever yeshiva he goes to. Again, it may not be easy because the yeshiva may not have the same appreciation as you have for your son's way, but it's crucial. If you see from Sham Shafal Hirsch, it's not pashut. If you decide to put your son in the yeshiva that he doesn't belong in, because it seems to be either convenient or what else am I going to do, you have to make adjustments, because the repercussions could be very serious, as Sham Shafal told us. And therefore, the first crucial step of all these things is understanding his uniqueness, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made him and gave him the specialty that no one else in the history of mankind could ever have, like your son has or your daughter has. And therefore, number one is to recognize his uniqueness. This uniqueness should come out not just in the classroom, but should come out in the things that he appreciates doing. In our yeshiva, we have an elective program. Elective program means that after night seder at 8:30 at night, and then Sunday afternoons instead of English that we have in America. So we have an elective program. Elective program means there's about 30 different electives. That means we have a musical elective, a choice of 8 different instruments: trumpet, trombone, saxophone, violin, drums, keyboard, guitar. Okay? That's just our music. Now, it's just not enough to give a music elective. You have to make it feel good about it. Just play music. So we have the only, firm marching band in the world. It's a 30-piece marching band. We go to chasnas, parades, spatial waves. We're known worldwide for our marching band. And those from America have heard about it, seen the chasnas. A few of my alumni are here. Have all been in the marching band to some extent. But those are ones who appreciate music. I have other electives. We have car mechanics. We have 3 Bachman who built a car, a 1965 Mustang. Okay, 1965 Mustang from scratch. Right now I have a boat elective. They're building, almost kids be sort of fun. I heard they do crazy things. I got a great idea. Why don't you build a boat? So they showed me online they can build a canoe, a kayak. I said, that's not a boat. Let's get a real boat. So we found a sailboat, a full sailboat, a 15-foot schooner, which sleeps to an ocean-going vessel. It takes 600 hours. I took my 4 Bachman who were good at their hands, but they weren't in any of the other electives. I made them in charge. 600 hours. They already finished the hull of the boat. And Bez Hashem, our maiden voyage is going to be from Muncie down the Hudson River to Williamsburg, pick up a piece of pizza, and come back. That's a maiden voyage. I just told make sure you wear life jackets. Anyway, but and an outboard motor and back. But, right, so it's chinuch l'midako, those are good. Now, everything in our yeshiva, every single thing that could be built by the Bachram are built. Our Kodesh, gorgeous, the beam of the Shram, everything's built by the Bachram. When you come to yeshiva the first day, you don't have any desk to sit at. You sit at a long table. And all the Bachram, 9th grade, sit at a long table. They got no desks. Every Sunday, for the next 3 Sundays, which is an Elzman, they spend 3 to 5 hours building their desks from scratch. I give them the wood, tools, it can't be any drill. It has to be blood and guts. blisters on the hand, and all my alumni here are smiling. They remember, blood and guts. You have to turn the screwdriver. It's pre-drilled, but so they can't really mess up. And older Bachim will come and help them build their desk. The first concept in Sharazim is, you can do anything, I'm going to prove it to you, over and over and over again. So when you spend time with your child, you got to find his dark eye. You got to understand what his hobby is, what his nature is, what his language is, whether it's in learning or in spending time with him, find what he's good at and make him very good at that. And there's many other electives we have. We also have professional Chinese acrobats. So you're smart Chinese acrobats, yeah, the flips and Chinese acrobats and tumble-sauce and three-stories and pyramids. And we go to chasanas, and actually a year and a half ago, those maybe living by Vegan would know, a Yid calls me up Lefkevich from Barapak and says, I saw and was is nice that you do shows, and you go, you do shows, you're a chasanas, how much for a chasana? I said, well, in Muncie we charge $400, in Lakewood it's $1,500, in Brooklyn it's $2,000. Where's your chasana? It's in my Vegan. I said, we'll do it for free. I just need 10 round-trip tickets and a hotel stay. And open up, call my bookkeeper. Last July 4th, he flew us all into Eretz Yisrael. We went all over Eretz Yisrael. Mama just gave her off myself by a little stein. We also made it to the chasana, by the way, at the end. And so Baruch Hashem, it's chanech l'napidar to find what he's good at. And there are many other electives that we have at the yeshiva to bring us talent. And that is a parent. Of course, your sons or daughters' yeshivas may not do that, but find what he's good at, spend time with him, build up and show him that that thing what he's good at is really what he will be good at. And this is not just what he's going to be good at in yeshiva, but his life. And I don't mean just profession, which it also may be. I don't think any of our Bachim are going to become professional musicians. Right? That's not the goal here. But to develop his dark is only going to make him to a developed human being. And that's the goal of what we do in yeshiva, and that's really the next step. So when we talk about understanding someone's darkoi and appreciation of his uniqueness, this is something that is number one. Number two, this is what we do in yeshiva, is we talk very much about understanding students and their life skills and where they're coming from, where they're going. I just thought of, my father was a school teacher in Washington Irving High School. It was in Manhattan. My father's day was already completely black. It was a pretty scary school to work to. He was a teacher, and he was a 10th grade history teacher, public school. And the principal said, Mr. Freundlich, listen, Leroy's been in your class already for 8 years. He's already 25. You've got to pass him. I said, what do I mean to do? He doesn't know the work. Look, you got to pass him. I'm the principal. I'm going to ask him one question in history. If he knows it, he passes. Is that okay, Mr. Freundlich? My father says, okay, it's okay, true story. So the principal said, Leroy, if you go into the New York side of the Holland Tunnel, where do you end up? Holland! You passed! That was it, and he graduated to 11th grade. So, you have to understand where your students are. You have to know where children are, so where they're coming, where they're going, and not necessarily the things that you understand as pashut, your child will understand as pashut. That's really coming from a different aspect of understanding your children. Also, let's bring back to Harry and Rosa. Harry and Rosa, were getting on in age now after looking out the window all those days. And finally, Harry says, I think my wife has a little bit of hearing loss, and I got to test her out. So he goes 10 feet behind Rosa and says, Rosa. No answer. 5 feet behind Rosa. Rosa. No answer. He says, my worst fears are coming true. He goes right behind Rosa and whispers, Rosa, yes, for the 3rd time. So, not understanding the problem is also a big issue. And this is what we're going to discuss next. And this is called the life skills is something that is very, very important. And unfortunately, many of our yeshivas and our own homes don't give life skills these days. Rav Shlomo Volbe in his Sefer Chinuch talks about a concept of bringing Mashiach. Hashem has the master plan bringing Mashiach, and it's done in 2 ways. There's Boinei Yerushalayim, building Yerushalayim, and there's Matzmiach, Keren Yeshua. To bring the fruition of Mashiach needs a Boinei Yerushalayim, building Yerushalayim, and Matzmiach, Keren Yeshua. Allowing growth of your salvation to sprout. And he says that that's the analogy of chinuch or anything in this world. There's a boine, there's building. The building blocks means you have a bacher, you have a child that comes to yeshiva or to school, and you have to give this, learning Gemara, another blot, another blot, another blot, another blot, and that's the building. And then you have matzniach, the growing, the organic growth, an atmosphere of growth. That means planting a seed and step back. Of course, you got to give sunlight and water. You have to create an atmosphere where the seed can grow, but it's step back and wait. Your job is creating an atmosphere. When I was in Monsey, another yeshiva that has taken on Mahacham Chinuch is a Satmar yeshiva in Monsey. And the roof of the Satmar yeshiva, real, with the cat glass, the real flying saucer, cat glasses, the real Satmar. He told me, Rav Freundlich, when you go to Eretz Yisrael, you have to visit a yeshiva. It's just like Shara Ruzim. Out of yeshivas. He has a yeshiva, a yeshiva just like Shara Ruzim. Yeah, I've got to go. What's the name of yeshiva? Paduel. Anybody heard of Paduel? Okay, so I get off the airport, I get off the plane, I got to go to Paduel. Ask the taxi driver, take me to Paduel. Never heard of Paduel. No driver. Hey, for Paduel. Fine, one guy says, Paduel, that's in Shtachim. You gotta go. So it cost me $140 cash to take me to Paduel. This better be worth it. So I go wind the roads. The taxi driver says, I don't have a gun. What am I gonna do? I said, look, I'm paying $140. Get me there. So, and we pass the checkpoints, and we go to the Shtachim, we're going around, and he shows you, here's where 3 people were killed, and here's 8 people were killed, and we finally get to Paduel. And it's this little community on the top of a mountain, and we say, Efo Yeshiva Shabadua. I have to know what I'm looking for. I'm looking for Shara some Star Yeshiva. And I get there, and I start this broken down building, and I walk into the kitchen. So I walk right in, and I see Mizrahi Bachrim cleaning, and they're cooking, and they're cleaning, and the entire yeshiva is run by the Bachrim. They're cleaning, and everything is done by the Bachrim. So I understand why I think it's like Sharazim, because Sharazim we have tremendous responsibilities, which we'll talk about soon. But there's something more has to be here. So I go to one bacher, he's wearing shorts and a big kippah suga, and I say, what are you doing here? He's talking English a little bit. Why are you here? Why would you be in yeshiva where they make you work? He said, what do you mean? This builds an Eved Hashem. I said, well, and I was just taken aback. No, come on. What are you doing here? Did they give you good stuff here, good food? No, food is horrible. What do you... I love HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And I told to each one, Hashem. I come from the United States. That's not the way you talk. and I'm going to each bacher. Come on. Let me ask you something. Why did you choose this? It's a mechinah, it's a hesder. Why do you choose this yeshiva? And each one, because we want to come closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And I'm like, I cannot believe my ears. And there's signs all over the place. Yoser, Shimusha Shaltar, Yoser Milimuda, Vahaftarecha Kamoicha. And this is, it's incredible. I never heard of a person talk this way. So I said, okay, let's go to the Beit Shemesh. I guess what's going on. And you go upstairs, the ponytail, okay, you have the breast luchas, the payas, with the knitted yarmulke, you have ponytails, yarmulke on, yarmulke off. It's I've never seen anything like this. Shorts, Rosh Hashivas, 8 buttons open, fighting about how the internet's destroying your life, and Facebook is destructive, and the whole atmosphere, the Bachim are just listening to the Rosh Hashiva, and they're drinking in the word, they're learning Ashlag, which is a parish on the Sulam on the Zoyar. They're learning Rav Nachman, Satmarov, Sfas Emes, and I have this schedule. There's like Chassidus is the first part, then Halacha, Chassidus, Musar, Hashkafa, and they're learning like deep swarms, Shema Shmuel, and Norm Melech. The whole thing is so, it threw me off my equilibrium, just like, what? And then I sat down with the Manal of the yeshiva, and I said, what is going on here? And I noticed there were mattresses in the Beit Shemesh. What? The bacher comes late to davening, he has to sit in the Beit Shemesh. Don't get up in time for davening. And then, and everyone's achroi here, and they build the yeshiva, and everything's done, the maintenance and the taking care of all the bachrim, and they build human beings and make them into human beings, and erlich, and And I understood why this Satmar Rav over there in Muncie told me to go to yeshiva, because that's what we believe in. And I walked out of there, I was obviously mixed emotions. So I came back in to speak to them out again. So I got to talk to you. I'll tell you what my thoughts first. And I went back to Shlomo Volbe's Vart. He says as follows. If you just have a Boina Yerushalayim, you're just building Torah, more block, and you have no matzmiach, no atmosphere of growth, you've created a robot. In New York we have some robots. They're just doing the right thing, they look good, there's no matzmiach, no opportunity, no atmosphere of growth, and they get blot after blot after blot after blot, they're Boina Yerushalayim. And then you have just a robot. And in the future, at any point, there's no matzmiach, there's no organic growth. Robots can't organically grow. That's it. After you keep building, if it stops, robot's dead. Robot's over. On the other hand, Shlomo Volbe says, if you just have matzmiach kerishua, grow with no bone. You know, we have a tomato garden, right? So you put the tomato in, and you let it grow. Let's say you don't have any Home Depot, those metal trestles that let the tomato vines go on. You just have matzmiach. Tomatoes growing wild all over the place. Just tomatoes, you step on them. This is what you need. Just raw matzmiach with no bona means wild growth. I walked out of the door, I said, this is amazing, the matzmiach. And then I went back in and I said to Shiva, to them now, so are they finishing the Seftas? Because it's such an atmosphere, they have and it's real Avas Hashem. And they weren't kidding, I was asking other people, they really have Avas Hashem. And it was real. And I felt it, and I was very awe-inspired. I said, so such an atmosphere, they should be finishing the Seftas out of the love of Hashem. Well, you know, some do, some don't. And that's when it hit me. It's Avas Hashem. Avas Hashem has to be tempered with Yiras Hashem. Matzmiach, Karen Yeshua by itself, just wild growth. You need boina. You need to have the boina and the rest together. One without the other. And this is something that I worked out. That was the message I got out of. You need to create yeshiva with Avas Hashem and Matzmiach Karen Yeshua tempered with boina, or something that comes together. And then it hit me the name of Sharas, which I never thought about. There are many yeshivas in Muncie, Shara Torah, Oil Torah, Beish Ragla. These are all boy yeshivas. Shara Torah, Oil Torah, Oil Torah, Beish Ragla. Share Arozim. You have boina together with Matzmiach. An atmosphere of growth. So how do we have an atmosphere of growth? And this is something that I do as parents. I say parents and educators, because you're the best educators of the children, you have to create a home which is matzmiach, carry Yeshua. Boy, you have plenty of. Go clean your room. Do what I say. Go to sleep. That's the point. Do your homework. Finish the plot. That's your point. Your houses and your homes have to become matzmiach, carry Yeshua together. The way we do in yeshiva is we have a life skill curriculum which basically gives every bacher an opportunity to shine. And the shining comes through activities that he may do, lectures that he may hear, just soidis that he'll have to act upon. For a second. This is called our life skill curriculum. Life skill curriculum, the Bachim don't see it. This is for everybody. It talks about life skills, working together as a team, problem solving, confidence, communication, presentation, perseverance, responsibility, organization, goal setting, prioritizing, leadership. That's the first part of our life skills of being a human being. The second part is being a husband and a loving father. And the third part is being a person in society. And basically, each one, problem solving, the yeshiva is known, the Brachim, this is not a problem solving yeshiva, it's a goal oriented yeshiva. Problems create people that become great people. and understanding. And this is not about the yeshiva. When we talk about confidence, you come to yeshiva, if you walk into yeshiva, you think it's Kiddush Levana. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem. Every bacher says Shalom Aleichem. And they understand that the reason Shalom Aleichem is because you have to understand another Yid, have to appreciate another Yid, make him feel he's worth something. And the reason you don't say Shalom Aleichem, no other reason, it's because you don't have self-confidence. And I give the marshal, the Bacham are going to laugh here when I say, you walk into a building, right, or someone walks into your building, to your yeshiva building or somewhere, and you look at them, and an Alti Yid, nice Erlich Yid, right, he walks into the building, and another Yid walks into the building, thick black glasses, leather jacket, tough-looking guy. Who do you say Shalom Aleichem to first? You always pick the Alti Yid. Why? Say Shalom to both of them. He's less intimidating. What do you mean? The Bacham understand, what they trained to understand, is that the reason you don't say Shalom Aleichem is because you're afraid. Maybe not to respond, maybe you think I'm weird. We build confidence. Every Bacham Yeshiva has to down to the Yom, which is normal. Every Bacham has to lane for the Yom. Every Bacham in Elul blows shofar. Every Bacham does everything. Builds confidence, understand that you can achieve, you can become great. You have an ability to be something even though it's difficult for you. Responsibility, every single Bacham Yeshiva has responsibility. Every Bacham has responsibility. That means the 3 Bacham have to crack the eggs, 2 Bacham have to cook the eggs. That means it's a responsibility that something's missing, that means yeshiva is lacking. It's not like a responsibility that no one notices. Every Bachar has something yeshiva has to be done. Trains responsibility, achrayus for life, organization, goal setting. We have goal setting sheets, long-term goals, short-term goals. And Bachar have to work on this with the Banal. This is something you can do in your own homes, and you need to do, because these are the life skills that can make them into human beings. And then we talk about being a father, a loving father, a caring husband, that if you don't do this now, if you don't show this to your children now, they're not going to pick it up in yeshivas. And unfortunately today we see so many people that get married, they don't have the skills. Just because you're of age doesn't mean you have the skills to be married and raise a family. And then we have a whole curriculum on what it means to be a Yid in society, and how it means to be Arla Goyim. And this is the second thing that we have in yeshiva that creates this atmosphere of growth, is that the Bachrim feel that they're able to achieve greatness and to do things that never thought possible. There's respect and understanding and confidence building and responsibility that only I can do something that another Bachar doesn't have that responsibility. I have responsibility, and when it happens, because I did it, and if I don't do it, there's repercussions. That she doesn't have X, Y, and Z. Rabbi Shomer Freifeld, one of my mentors, although I never learned this from Freifeld, I'm too young to be a Talmud of his, but I spent many years understanding his Mahalach. He says you can't make someone grow, but you can create an atmosphere that is conducive for growth. And that, as parents, your obligation as mechanchim, as educators of your children, you have to create your homes an atmosphere where they have opportunity to grow. And the biggest thing about growing is if you plant the seed and then you want to see whether it grew, and you dig down, did it grow yet? Did it grow yet? Kill the plant. You have to make sure you step back, create all the environment, let the organic growth grow. Because if you have a boina, Yeshua, you have a human being that will continue many, many years later. Even when you have stepped away and the child has moved on, you have a continuous growth, that growth that you as parents have given him the opportunity to absorb. You know, in Lakewood, after Hurricane Sandy, there was a story, I don't know if you heard it, a story going around. There was a young man in Lakewood, a Lamdan, who was walking by a row of townhouses in Lakewood, the new townhouses. And he knows right after Hurricane Sandy, there were about 10 trees in front of townhouses. And he noticed that every other tree fell down the exact same way. Bam. One tree up, one tree down, one tree up, and so most of us would walk by, so that's interesting. He said, no, there's a svara here, it's the lumpus. So he came closer and noticed that around the trees, there was a sprinkler system that the builder put in for the trees. Wherever the sprinkler system was around the tree completely, that tree fell down. And the one that was about 5 feet away from the sprinkler system, that stood up. Okay, so that didn't answer the question, so there must be a svara. He understood that a tree that had the sprinkler right there had no reason to dig his roots into the ground. He got water right there. The ones that were far from the sprinkler system had to dig their roots all the way down into the ground. And when the winds blew, they were able to withstand all the hurricane forces. Your children come from tremendous homes. They come from your homes with roots that are dug deep into the ground. The truth is they should be able to withstand all the winds that happen in their lifetime. And can I know today, the winds are this small and smaller. And those winds can blow for many hours in your child's mind and heart. And Baruch Hashem, you have created wonderful roots in your children that they have what to withstand the wind. But they're not trees. Although Shai Rosen is a tree, they're not trees. We look at them like teeth. There's adult teeth and there's baby teeth. The baby teeth are well rooted inside your child's mouth. Perfect. They look perfect. And you dental floss them and you brush them. Now I'm not going to ask the question because I know what the answer is going to be. When the dentist told you when your adult teeth came in, you have to brush 3 times a day. Dental floss 8 times a day. You have to have a special floss with the pick and the right. We know what the answer is, how many you actually listen to when you were kids. When your adult teeth come in, you have a very small window of opportunity to make sure they gain roots. It's not a tree. Your children come from your homes. Your roots are strong, but they're not trees. They're baby teeth that have moved on to adult teeth. When the teeth come in, they need to make sure, you need to make sure, that they develop strong roots. And whatever maintenance needs to be done to correct that or fix that at the beginning is, I don't want to say your only chance, but the real chance you have for them to survive long term. If you neglect them right away with that small, or I don't know what it is, 6 months or a year, when they're developing those roots to the adult teeth, if you neglect them there, you're going to have to start for the rest of your life with your teeth. This is chinuch. Your children are wonderful children. When they're moving on to adulthood, adolescence. And adolescence is the most difficult time of a child's life because they want to be treated like an adult, but they don't want the responsibilities of an adult. They want not to be treated like a child, but they want to act like a child. So it's very confusing. That adolescent point is your key right before when he's 12, even 11, 12, 13, 14. Those are the years that you have to create strong roots for them to be able to hold that into the future. Number one is recognizing your child's uniqueness, what makes him special, because motivation, self-esteem, confidence, creativity, desire to grow is based on number one, the uniqueness. Number two is creating a Shalom always, B'nai Yerushalayim with Matzmiach Kain Yeshua, create a home of warmth, an environment of growth. Give him responsibility, show him he can become great, build his confidence, build his ability to communicate. Make sure he gets up again. It's difficult, but at a young age, ask them to get up and speak at the table to build their confidence. I know it's not easy, but try to encourage them. Do whatever tricks you need to give them the life skills that they need desperately to become healthy fathers and husbands in Erlich Eden. That's our the dream we all have is our children should be Erlich Eden and happy fathers and husbands and people that are really to Hashem. There's one more thing that I'd like to discuss about, which is the key of bringing these most important leaders to your children. You know, many of you are thinking to yourself, this is an amazing yeshiva. And is amazing. We have 3 other yeshivas in the United States, other communities that have adopted our mahala. Baruch Hashem, we're now moving on to a capital campaign, the Yeshiva House, 300 to 400 Bachar, which will then become a force in Klal Yisrael altogether, to change the face of Klal Yisrael, to give a different opportunity for hundreds of thousands of Bachar who are Yishmak Yidden, who understand that their uniqueness is giving them the life skills and the opportunity to grow beyond the B'nai Yerushalayim is something they need for life. This is going to change, Baruch Hashem, the face of chinuch in America. I was brought here by Askanim and Rabbanim of Ramat Beit Shemesh. Ramat Beit Shemesh will be opening up a yeshiva this coming Elzman called Arzei Levana, which is after Shari Razim, Arzei Levana, which will be a yeshiva. I mean, our yeshiva is the incubator for the past 14 years of success of Bachram moving on. I have many of my alumni here learning in Brisk and Mir, Shalom Schechter, and Tzvi Kaplan, Kol Yungalite, and I have Baruch Hashem many Balabatim who moved on with families after 14 years, Erlich Yidin, and we have an array of Talmidim, and the Askanim have brought me here to Ramat Beit Shemesh to entice you that there's a new yeshiva that will be opening up in Elzman. And I'm very involved with yeshiva, following the derech of Shari Razim and understanding the specific needs of the Ramat Beit Shemesh community. Of course, every community, Lakewood is a little bit different because the Lakewood community is different than Monsey, and the Baltimore yeshiva is a little different, and the Chassidish yeshiva is very different. The same educational philosophy, and the Ramat Beit Shemesh community, of course, has their own specific needs. I was brought here to help the community develop such a yeshiva for those Bachram who are looking for a yeshiva that can help them become great and understand that their abilities of greatness are really ain't safe. There's no limit to what they can become. But I really want to end off with the third aspect of chinuch of our children, which is so fundamental. Number one, the uniqueness. Number two, of developing an atmosphere of growth. And it's interesting because I had this past Shabbos a reunion of my alumni. About 15, 20 of my alumni were learning in the Eretz Yisrael Yeshiva and Chosh Yeshiva Eretz Yisrael. So from Calling the Light, they came together Thursday night. We had a Hanukkah party by one of my alumni and his dear in Yerushalayim. And I told them that I'm going to be speaking, and they said, no, tell me a highlight of Shari Razim that I should speak about. And they said, Rebbe, you're going to tell them the Glenn story? I actually didn't think about it. I said, no, I'll tell them the Glenn story. I said, well, know it. There was a little boy, Glenn, a 7-year-old boy. Him and his brother were unfortunately actresses in 1910, were actually burned in a terrible fire by pouring gasoline into the stove fire instead of kerosene. He and his brother were burned 50% of their body, and they basically were sent to the hospital with basically no hope to survive. Over the next 3 months, Glenn's 3-year-old brother died. Glenn was so badly injured the doctors wanted to amputate his legs. His parents pleaded for more time. And as he heard the conversation between the doctors and Glenn's parents, your child will never walk again, Glenn in his bed are unable to speak. He said to himself, I'm going to walk. I'm going to run one day. And they didn't amputate, they waited. After a few months of living one day at a time, the doctors removed the bandages, only to find his left leg was 2.5 inches shorter than his right leg, and his right foot was missing most of its toes. Glenn was sent home with no hope to ever walk again. Glenn was sent home in a wheelchair, and he used to take his wheelchair to the porch and roll down to the porch. And there was a white picket fence around his front yard, and Glenn would come down to the bottom of the porch every morning. He'd throw himself out of the wheelchair and hold on to the white picket fence and drag himself across the fence and drag himself until he feels some movement in his feet. He would drag himself so much that after 2 weeks, there was a path around the entire garden that he pulled himself around. And he did this day after day. Until about 2 months later, he found that he had movement in his legs. Now, unfortunately, being a cripple, he kept saying, I'm not going to walk one day, I'm going to run one day. He was then put on crutches, and of course going to school was very difficult for him, because every time that he would try to get anywhere, it was impossible to get with crutches, because schools were not handicap equipped. He would throw his crutches down on the floor, and he would walk, step by step, excruciating pain. I'm not going to walk, I'm going to run. And Glenn continued this for the next few years. At one point, he found himself being able to walk with some kind of momentum. He went to the horse in his backyard, held onto his tail, whipped the horse, and the horse started running. And Glenn was riding with it. Glenn continued this for a number of years. And he says, I have a lot to make up for my loss, but I'm going to run one day. The young boy who was burned in a fire who would never walk again, had a name. His name was Glenn Cunningham. The same Glenn Cunningham in 1934, Glenn Cunningham was the first human being to run the mile in under 4 minutes. Glenn Cunningham in 1936 earned a silver medal at the Berlin Olympics. He was awarded title Athlete of the Century in Madison Square Garden in 1938. Now hearing this story is a very powerful and emotional story. I heard this story from a person that has a yeshiva for learning disabled children, Dr. Chesner, very wonderful person. And I was with Menalim, and he gave us a Menalim workshop, and he gave us the story. And at the end of the story, he said, I told this over to my yeshiva, my learning disabled boys. And they looked with anger at me. And Dr. Chesner said, he was taken aback. And the boy said, do you think we're like Glenn? You mean, are you comparing us to Glenn? No. I was just trying to inspire. Glenn had it much easier than we do. When Glenn threw his wheelchair down and pulled himself across the yard, his family was cheering him on. Go, Glenn, you can do it. When he threw his crutches down in school, his friends were saying, you can do it, Glenn. They were cheering him on. When he went behind the horse, they were saying, Glenn, you can do it. No one sees our struggles, these students says. No one sees our pain, what we struggle with. No one sees how, when we are trying to learn in class and we're distracted, no one cheers us on. Glenn has it much easier than we do. There's a fan club. There are people that root him on. They give him the chizik. We get no chizik. And when I heard the story, and I told the story to me, Baruch Hashem, our Bachim, our Choshev Bachim coming from strong backgrounds and learning. But just this concept, I was driving the Bell Parkway once, and I saw a big, huge billboard. It says, 27% of kids drop out of school. 100% of the kids need a boost. And that was the concept. I don't care who you are. I don't care any of us. All of us, if we would have had someone rooting us on, cheering us on, giving us tremendous chizuk, you can do it, your struggles, and every single girl and boy who goes through any system needs a chizuk, needs a boost, needs a cheerleader, needs someone to give support. And without it, you'll be a boy in a wheelchair. And with it, you'll be the fastest man alive. And the third thing, when we talk about motivation, self-esteem, confidence, creativity, desire to grow, number one is the uniqueness, understanding the chinuch and apidarko. Number two, it's the life skills. It's understanding the opportunity for growth, creating a home of growth, giving him life skills for life and her that they can go on to be healthy human beings, fathers, husbands, wives, mothers. And the third thing is they need a lot of chizuk, a lot of support. And you are the only ones who give. Unfortunately, Yeshiva system does not give the support that a parent can give. And understanding these three yesodis is something that's going to give your child the opportunity to grow and to become a human being, a healthy human being, a parent and a spouse. And Be'ez Hashem, understanding these yesodis is something that all of us need to let absorb, to inculcate, and to be able to bring this back to our children in a way that's real, and palatable, and something that children can really feel. Be'ez Hashem, with that, we'll all raise tremendous Oidei Hashem and Yerei Shamayim. Thank you.
My question, I think, one that a number of people had is that how do you integrate what's in more general Israeli society with the spiritual idea, and how do you integrate or not integrate that reality into this system for?
You know, people in the United States always ask me, are you pro-college or are you against college? They say, we're pro-Avodas Hashem. And every person understands that answer is our job is to give a person life skills. Life skills means if you need to go to the risk, you have the life skill you need to go to risk. If you need to go to the workplace, you have the life skills to it. I cannot answer your question because I'm not involved in the day-to-day. Because English, obviously, in America is everyone English in America. But the concept is that I don't care what the answer is. But in order to follow this understanding of chinuch and apidarko, given the life skills of life, it has to include something that whatever his life skill is going to be, he is prepared. Sending a child to the world ill-prepared is the biggest area that you can do. So I'm not answering specifically because I don't know the answer to your question. But the yesod, and I tell parents, I have brought them in the greatest yeshivas in Eretz Yisrael in America, and I brought them from law school, and I brought them from medical school, obviously after years of yeshiva, both of them are working, and each one gained the life skill, the confidence to be able to do what they need to do now in the sifta, or in your case, that they can achieve greatness in life, whatever they do. So I avoid the question very easily with the parent who says you go to college, get to college, because it's irrelevant. I'm making a human being, creating a keli to be able to conquer. What they do that with the parents and the Mahanhola and Yeshiva, I have many different drugs. So I'm going to also avoid your question. Again, I really don't have an answer. I don't even know what the Mahanhola, I guess, the Rabbanim and the Skanim will give you more details. I think there's an open house in 2 weeks. 2 weeks of an open house about this new yeshiva, and there you can ask that question to the point. Yes? Bullying, that's a very difficult, and that's a big topic in the Rishbach magazine and the Jewish Observer in the United States. Bullying is really coming from low self-esteem. The bully feels inadequate, and the only way, you can ask my boss from here, I have about 10 alumni here. When I go like this, right, they all laugh. There are 2 ways to reach greatness, right? You can work hard. Your friend's up here, and you're down here. You want to reach greatness? You want to reach your friend? There's 2 ways. You can work hard and get up to him, or you can knock him down. And now you're the same. We talk about this all the time. The concept of bullying comes from low self-esteem, and I call spade a spade. We don't talk, I don't mince words. It's very straight. If you're picking on someone, if you're showing that you are more cautious, it's because you have a low self-esteem issue. And part of the yeshiva is to build confidence and build self-esteem to all of our programs, the yeshiva. So Mamela, the need is less. Does it not exist? I would be foolish to say it doesn't exist, but it's much less. By our retreats, the Bachram know, we have 2 retreats a year. The retreats are very powerful, thematic retreats. There are workshops, and the Bachram, whatever the theme is very powerful. And they understand that the yesod is to build a human being. We have a kumz that's Friday night, we all sit around and sing. Not every Bachram Yeshiva has to get up and sing solo. Get up and sing solo! Stoltz! Don't be afraid. Don't look at someone else, sing solo. It's an atmosphere of security. Bachram not afraid. I once had a Bachram down for the Amid, a 9th grader. Now, the men here know what happens to a freshie if he makes him wait an extra 10 minutes. He missed the bracha, no one happened. Then do mincha chazot over again. We know we were done with the freshie, he does that. Right? The Bacher, after he finished 10 minutes again, the whole year waited, he told me, baby, not a single bracha said a word to me. It's an atmosphere of security. So we know at this retreats that everyone gets them and sing. We know the Bacher with the hearing aid got up. Where the hearing aid sings? I mean, it's don't less secure environment. We don't laugh. And this is 80 Bacher, 80 to 100 Bacher like this. So, of course, there is bullying. There's always bullying because until the person fixes his self-esteem, he's going to bully. It's much less. Yes.
So, what is the protocol you use to handle it?
And when you come to yeshiva, you're already bombarded with these concepts of understanding yourself, understanding why you do something, insecurities. We talk very open about it. The Rebbeim are obviously following up in the shiurim, but every morning after Shacharis, I give about a 20 minutes or half an hour pep talk every single day about all life skills, all concepts, or whatever it is, topics of the of the week, all different midos we talk about this, and we're very straightforward about what it means to understand yourself and why you do things, why you put people down. So the protocol is just really bombarding him with concepts over and over again. You mean to say what's the disciplinary action?
Right, not
Yeah.
necessarily, what's the chinuch action?
What's the
Not
chinuch?
necessarily discipline, but
I mean, what's the chinuch aspect?
how do you teach the children to handle?
Oh, the children itself.
Right.
Okay, well, every Rebbe will talk about the specific circumstances with the Talmud. It depends what it is. If the child is being made fun of because he, is not good at sports, there's one way to handle it. And there's a stolz that the Bachar learn to have, that understanding how valuable they are. When another Bachar says X, Y, and Z, not to let it affect you, is something that the Rebbe work with the child.
And another quick question is, prior that your Rebbeim have degrees
All of
in
our
masters of
okay,
education
they're
based on multiple
our English
intelligence?
teachers have, most of our English teachers are Master of Education. The Movie Coach Rebbeim do not. I personally, I've been giving them basically once a month. They get a tennis course, Howard Gardner, different types of intelligence, multiple intelligence courses and different courses that I would give them, but they're not agree. Which have the men's, anyone for the men's? Yes.
Is there any hedgehog as far as you're putting in time and effort onto life skills, etc., as far as hesped, as far as the particularly and sort of connected for that child? Some children they'll grow much more in their learning by having the other aspects. But if you have a child who's really built for a lot of hesped and a lot of learning, and sort of
I'll be honest with you. I have two children, and when it was Muncie, I sent my children to one to Beis Shraga and one to Beis Medrash Elyon. These are high-level yeshivas. As they were getting up in age, I was begging to get them a class in Shai Razin, but they're so advanced, I couldn't find a class for them. But I sent to the yeshivas, and I told the yeshivas on condition that Tuesday night he comes to marching practice, and Wednesday night he has to come to acrobats. So my sons are actually in my elective program as well, and they get that from me. If the yeshiva here or any yeshiva, so my goal is when I have Bez Hashem, when I have my capital campaign, I have yeshiva 300 bachrim, I will have an opportunity for them to have very intense learning at the same time life skills, i.e., an opportunity, an atmosphere of growth. Like the Sharos extreme. You're going to finish Nizikin cold, cover to cover, by the time you graduate from Sifta, high school. So if your child is someone who is a very motivated child, he still needs life skills. We know many very bright children in the New York area who have super duper sharp minds, but they're not balanced when it comes to understanding other human beings' feelings and empathy and these things. So just because you're a solid learner, if you don't have the understanding and awareness of another person's needs and being grown in an organic growth opportunity place, you're going to be lacking. So although you need to develop a shir which is matim for him, I once asked Ramat Solomon, I said, which bacher doesn't need our elective program? He says everyone needs a program. How much? That's the difference. But everybody needs to have a healthy outlet. Right? So is it an hour a day, or is it half an hour a day, is it once a week? Everybody needs a healthy outlet. So, yes.
Question. When you said that you shouldn't learn with your son, what exactly do you mean?
No, I just cautioned you that it's not. There's a tremendous tension when a father learns with his son. There are parents who should not be learning with their son. I didn't say it across the board. And everyone has to understand there. If you feel the tension, stay away. That's really much it comes out. Yes. Anyone on this side? Yeah.
It seems like a lot of the girls' schools are already implementing
Yes.
these types of things
Yes.
without this concept. It's more for men than boys. But how can girls' schools improve more? How can they take more of the concept and apply it to them?
It's funny because I'm not sure exactly what the Beis Yaakov movement exactly was for, but it seems like, I'll tell you something, when I had a parent come to me, we have a few Hasidic Shabachrim, with the curly pays, they came to take for Harris and Yeshiva, and I said, I don't understand, your son is not like a super duper masmid, but isn't that what Hasidus was all about? He said, no, the Hasidim have become Litvax. If you don't have the bottom line blot, if you don't finish Mesechtas, if you don't have Klar, you throw it out of Yeshiva. He said, yeah, and I was screaming at the banal, what do you mean? That's what Hasidus started! What did we become? Litvax! Unfortunately, the girls' schools have become Litvash yeshivas bottom line curriculum put out, but of course they have the concert and they have drama, but at the same time, again, I don't know the girls' schools, many of the schools are very curriculum focused, and I guess it depends what their student population is. That's something they have to revisit to find if the girls are moving out with life skills that they need to be mothers and wives. So I don't have an answer to, but it's interesting. Everyone's become sort of to this. You know, it is. We're living in a Wall Street Journal bottom line. How much money we have? Bottom line. You make it, didn't make it. How much you care, how much you want to be Erlich. We sort of, because we're affected by the guy who says there's a bottom line. Do you make the Forbes magazine or not? How much you tried? Who cares? Avodas Hashem, it's the antithesis. It's about Avodas Hashem so working. It's not about how many dollars you have. Yes?
I have 2 questions. One's very simple. How old do the Bachram go in yeshiva?
In our yeshiva, from 14 to 17. It's high school,
Just
9th grade.
There's no comparable thing for base medrash?
We've been thinking about that. We're looking to make a new base medrash, but not at this point. No, not for us. I mean, there are about the midrashim all around the world who have different programs, but it's not in this model.
Okay, second question. I work in a school, a girls' school, a base medrash school in America, just here on visit. How do you give them a rich enough learning atmosphere for those who can learn and want to go on and do things and whatever, while you're still, like you said, every school does, tries to say midos are more important. Every school does have a concert or some other outlet or some fun thing, and maybe a gym program, and maybe even an art program. Okay, but the bottom line is academics. That's true. That's what school is, isn't it?
Right.
I mean, you would encourage the parents. I always encourage my parents.
That's a good question.
Why, especially if she's a poor student, builds up her self-esteem by giving her sewing, giving her swimming, giving her this, giving her that, whatever. Telling her what a great babysitter she is, having her help you cook and things like that. But how do you make school without cheating?
I beg to differ. School is not a place of academics.
What? It's not a place for academics?
A school is a place to give you life skills for life.
So, for a
it's
lot
not
of
true.
things,
A school,
yeah.
what's academic? We have, it's in our society. This is important to hear. We have placed the value in our society is that we have Bachram going off there for kids up there because we have told them either in words or in action, your barometer of a yid is how many blood you know. That's not true. Torah encompasses our lives, but Limud Torah is one aspect, but there's a whole gamut. You can't be an Erlich without Limud Torah. But children walk out thinking, if I know how to learn, then Hashem loves me. And if I don't, what's it worth?
So in a limited period of time, I'm going back to a girls' school, okay? In a limited, which is, I guess it's not your...
That's the answer. It's not academic school.
Okay.
It's supposed to be skills for life.
How do you give them adequate academics?
Listen, there's a bottom line. You have to be able to get a diploma, at least in America. You have
That's
to
right.
you have to move on to Shiva Gedolah. Of
Right.
course. Let's
So
go
how
back.
do you
Let's
do
go back
that?
to Paduel.
It's
Let's go back to
a limited amount of
Paduel.
time you have, right?
Let's
How
go back to
do you-
Paduel. In Paduel, I went back and I said, so where's the Masechtas that they're finishing? And he didn't have an answer for me.
Right.
It was just Matzmiach. There wasn't binding. You have to have both.
Yeah.
So if it's just
So how do you get
wild,
more Matzmiach? That's what I want.
you need both. You need to incorporate both. But there's plenty of time in the day to incorporate both. And you know what? If I dare say,
You have boys till all night, okay?
Okay, so
we
I-
have girls
yeah.
from, in my school,
Yeah.
9 to 4.
yeah.
4.5 days.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm saying-
Particular school, okay? How do we give them any kind of an education?
Okay.
Already cut out.
I'm gonna-
cut out science. I cut out grammar. Forget that. Okay?
I'm going to speak to you. We'll speak
Okay.
afterwards
Okay.
privately, but I'm just going to address that if you have a yeshiva like Paduel, where you have tremendous Avas Hashem, but I didn't see the Baina, the bottom, being able to build on that. So all of a sudden, you're sort of disfigured. You're limping. You have to be balanced. Yeshivas are to create a human being, to give him skills for life in everything. If you just focus on one thing, then you're doing a disservice to the child. If we're just peace and love yeshiva, the child needs to move on to yeshiva gedolah and be able to get into the chashuv yeshiva gedolah, Panovich, or the girls get into the chashuv seminaries. You have to do both. But what I found in Shari Razim is many of our Bachrim came to yeshiva and they weren't the Mitziyonim. And I tell people, other yeshivas, you take olives, we make olives. Bachrim yeshiva, they weren't Mitziyonim. But because we gave an atmosphere of matzmiach u'boina, they became real Talmid Chachamim, moving on to choshev yeshivas. And I believe the yeshivas that incorporate more matzmiach, girls and boys schools, it's natural growth. And you'll strike yourself. Don't shove it down his, of course you have to have general curriculum, but you have to add that matzmiach, to understand the uniqueness of each of the Talmidim. It'll happen itself. Children, I say like this: when you go to a kindergarten class, try this at home. Go to class with 20 kindergarten kids and ask them, how many of you are smart? Every hand goes up. First grade, how many are smart? One hand goes down. Third grade, how many are smart? 10 hands go down. Fourth grade, how many are smart? 2 hands up. By 6th grade, how many smart? 1 hand is up. What happened? Am I looking dumb? No, because you have all the multiple intelligence, all the 7 different multiple intelligence in kindergarten. There's drawing, there's singing, there's this, there's that, there's this, and that's what determines smart. If you're only dealing with 2 languages called linguistic and mathematical logical, so everyone's dumb. Albert Einstein was notorious for losing his way anywhere. He had no spatial intelligence. He lost his way from the laboratory to his office. He'd get lost. In the Philippine Islands, 100 years ago, the way that the Gadol Hadar of the Philippine Islands, the king, was chosen was the one who could navigate the ships between hundreds of islands. All the commerce, everything was done by navigating ships. The one who could navigate a ship in the dark. Now, if there was no star, which star in the storm, that was the Gadol Hadar. What would Albert Einstein be in the Philippine Islands? Mentally retarded. Because there's no value for mathematical logical in the Philippine Islands. It's spatial intelligence. Our system has created one value to become an Oived Hashem, and that's lumdus. It's not true. It's not true. It's not true. Of course, he has to learn Torah. The way we teach Torah, you can learn Torah through all 7 intelligences. But it's not true. A yeshiva is a place to create Oived Hashem. Nothing to do with academics. Yeah, part of the ways. Torah. Yeah. Any other questions on this side?
From your discussions with, you mentioned before you spoke to Ramat Beit Shemesh, is that everybody needs the extracurricular courses.
Lav dafka in yeshiva.
So that's what I really wanted to ask. If he had it his way, etc., would he introduce this into, let's say, the more spitz
So
your discussion?
So the answer to the question is what he told me with my own children. He said everyone has to have a healthy outlet. Must have a healthy outlet to be a healthy human being. In yeshiva systems, it's not necessarily going to. I'll tell you the story. There was once I used to live in the 5 towns, and I was friendly with one of the DSRs, a school there, DSR, the S Stoller. Mrs. Stoller, we're very friendly with her in the neighborhood. Oh, Rabbi Freundlich, I love your yeshiva, it's so great. No, Shana, yeshiva, that's more centrist yeshiva. Oh, such a great yeshiva. I want you to quote my manal, Rabbi Kamenetsky, and I want you to tell him to do desk building in our yeshiva. I said, Mrs. Stoller, this is not an arts and crafts project, it's a philosophy. You can't just take one without the other. Putting in guitar into Long Beach, this is a philosophy. You're not asking for the outlet. A good buffer, a healthy buffer, should have a healthy outlet in Long Beach and Philly also. To put it into the curriculum, there's a different atmosphere that's growing there. Ramat was not saying that every yeshiva should have Sharazim's atmosphere. He was talking about specifically the outlet that Bacham has. He didn't necessarily say that this whole atmosphere is going to. There are concepts that have to be brought into every yeshiva according to what they need. The Lakewood Sharazim style yeshiva is much different than the Muncie one because Lakewood has a different need.
But fundamentally, how would a parent, let's say in Beit Shemesh, whatever the design that would come here, how would they decide to send their child to any place but the Shari Razin? What would make that decision? Say, no, how would they go about that?
I don't know the answer to the question because I don't know what this Arzeh Levan and Yeshiva is going to look like. And you as parents are going to be doing much more research than I am into what the Yeshiva looks like. The understanding of the philosophy is going to help you better. But at the end of the day, if you have a child that has a specific need, he needs whatever it is, and the yeshiva, for good or for bad, your child's too low, and the yeshiva can't help you, or your child is too advanced, like in my case of my son, she can help you, then you're not going to send your son there. You're going to see what the curriculum is, what something they're finishing, what yeshiva they're going to be able to get into. These questions. How important is it that your child should be a successful husband or father? I mean, I don't mean to be facetious, but I made some phone calls when I was around, and I heard a lot about my Beit Shemesh community before I came. And it's a rough town. I mean, you know better than me. There's a lot of, it's not easy, it's not Muncie, right? It's not even Lakewood. You know, Lakewood is a rough town, but and Muncie is like, you know, peace and love. Like, who runs Muncie? Muncie is a different community. So I made some phone calls to some of the mechanics here who are dealing with some of the issues here. You know, it's scary, the numbers, you know, again, and if you want to be more or less, you know, where those numbers are, or how many, it's something that a parent has to know what's best for their child. And I think the more accurate a parent knows his child and knows what his child needs and finds what's best for him versus popular culture, I think that's your best bet. So I can't answer your question. I don't know what everyone's going to be and what level they're going to be at. Someone's child here may be too low, and they won't accept it because they can't help. Their child has a learning disability, and they're not equipped for that. Some child may be a genius and belongs in Bris tomorrow. I can't answer that question. You'll have to do your due diligence to make sure that there's the appropriate level for your son's learning and appropriate needs. There's no perfect yeshiva. It's no such thing. Every yeshiva is good for every type of bar. You have to have Phillies in the world, Long Beaches in the world, you have to have Sharazim in the world, you have to have all types of yeshivas in the world. And if it fits your son's need, then it's a chinuch. If not, but it's all about being accurate with what your son needs, and that's to be brutally honest, is the key. Because you don't want to set yourself up for failure by sending to a place that is not in for his needs. Any other questions? Okay.
Good. Thank you very much. Are there any additional specific questions about the new yeshiva of Beit Hashem on December 21st, which is Saturday night? We're going to be having an open house. You can ask all the specific questions about Ramat Beit Shemesh and the curriculum and the yeshiva. If there's any general questions or chinuch questions for Rav Freundlich, now for a little while, and Rav Freundlich will be in Ramat Beit Shemesh tomorrow morning for a couple of hours, so you could be Martin as well. Thank you very much.